and welcome back to my channel. And for today's video, it's my craft video. I've been working on these for so long and I finally managed to get them finished. So I did make two, and these are made from Christmas decorations as well as a few other bits. So I hope you'll enjoy the video. Sit back and relax and I'll show you exactly how I made them. It's a little bit longer for a craft video than I normally do, but there are a lot of steps in this. So let's get started. To start off with, I'm using an old cardboard box and I'm going to make a base for my statue. So I've started with a 10cm square piece of cardboard and I've cut out 4 exactly the same size. And then I'm going to measure out some more squares and I'm going to do them a centimetre less each time. So I'm going to do 4 at 9cm, 4 at 8cm and 4 at 7cm. And then I'm just going to cut these out and we can start to glue them together. I'm going to glue them into pairs, so I'm going to take 2 of the same size squares and glue them together, and I'm going to do this with all the different sizes. I'm then going to glue these together, starting with the largest one and working my way up to the smallest one. Now that I've got my 2 bases, I've marked the center of each one and I'm going to just make a hole with a cocktail stick, and then I'm going to glue 2 of these in each of the bases just to create a stand for some polystyrene balls. Once everything is secured in place, I'm going to be using 2 of the Christmas decorations that I picked up in Poundland. Now, when I saw these, I fell in love with them and I knew I was going to do this project with them, and they're just the perfect size and shape. And all I'm going to do now is glue 1 to each of the top of the polystyrene balls and let them dry. Now that they're dry and secure, I'm going to take another 2 polystyrene balls and just with a pencil, I'm going to make quite a large hole in each one, and this is so that I can glue them to the top of the decorations. So the last thing I'm going to add to the top are some Christmas decorations that I picked up in the RSPCA, and I think I paid 50p for them, or they might have been £1 each. I'm not 100% sure, but I knew they would be perfect for the top of these statues. So I'm just using quite a lot of hot glue. I'm just going to glue one to each of the tops. And then once they're dry, I'm going to take these outside and spray paint them. And I'm using the Auto Extreme spray paint, and this is from Poundland. And I'm going to do a couple of coats, being careful with the polystyrene balls, because if you've ever used spray paint on polystyrene, it does melt. So I'm going to spray them from a distance. And here they are once they're all dry, and we can start to decorate them. Now, to add a little bit of detail to the centre of the statue around the large decoration, I'm using tile tape. Now, this is the last bit that I've got left, and I got this from AliExpress. It's self-adhesive, and I've used it in loads of projects, and I absolutely love this stuff. But you could use anything for this. You could use beads, and that's what I originally planned to use. But unfortunately, I didn't have enough gold beads in my craft stash, so I ended up using this. You could even paint them if you wanted, but I've not got a steady hand, so I knew it would end up looking a mess. So I'm just going to attach little bits of the tile tape into the recesses of the decoration just to bring out that detail, and I'm going to do this to both. So this is what it looks like with all the gold detail around the outside. And now I'm going to add some of the tile tape to round the base. And I'm just going to add this around each of the tiers of cardboard that we glued together, just to hide the edges and to finish it all off. And then the last thing I want to do with the tape is just add a bit to the bottom and the top of each of the decorations just to finish it off. And like I said, you could use ribbon for this. I think, you know, the ribbon that you use for wrapping around presents, I think that would be really good for this. And you can get it in a variety of colours, and it's really cheap. It's only about 50p. So yeah, you could use that instead. Or like I said, you could paint it if you wanted. I'm now going to do a little bit of dry brushing on the cherubs, and I'm using this enamel model paint, and it's actually in a metallic gold, but it dries more like a bronze. So I'm just dipping my brush in the pot, taking off the excess on some kitchen roll, and then I'm just going to pop my brush all over the front and the back of the cherubs. And I want it to be quite dark. The dry brushing, I want it to be more bronze than it is black. So I did 2 coats in the end, and they were quite heavy coats. I let them dry in between each coat, and I really liked how they turned out in the end. While the cherubs are drying, I want to add some beading around the centre of the statue. So I'm just using some beads that I've got left over from a necklace that I took apart, and I'm using a mixture of brown and gold just to tie in the colour of the statues, and I'm just threading them on with a thin needle and just on normal sewing cotton, and I'm just going to do them to the lengths that I want, and then I can glue these in place around the statues. So for the statues, I knew I wanted to create some cages for around the centres, and I was originally going to use embroidery hoops, but I couldn't find any in the charity shops. You know what it's like, you're looking for something, you can never find it. But I did remember that I had these cardboard circles that I got from Asda, and these were just in between the pans on the shelves, and they had some at the side that were no longer being used, and I just asked if I could have them, and they said yeah, that's fine. So if I was going to do this again, I would use embroidery hoops because these were really hard to cut, but for this I'm using them. So I'm just going to measure so I know where the center is on each side, and I'm going to cut these in half using a craft knife, and then I want them thinner than this, so I'm going to then measure the center, and then I'm going to cut down the side using a craft knife. Now this was really hard to do with a craft knife. It is quite thick cardboard, but like I said, if you was using embroidery hoops, you would only have to cut them in half. You won't have to cut them smaller because they'll be an ideal size. And because they were so hard to cut, I made quite a mess of them, so I'm just going to use some sandpaper to sand the edges down and make them quite smooth. And I've done 5 halves for each statue, so I've got 10 strips in total, and once I have sanded them, I'm just going to give them a quick coat of paint, just using black acrylic paint, and I'm going to make sure that I cover the inside and all the sides and the outside of each of the halves. And then before I glue these in place onto the statues, I'm just going to add a little bit more of the gold tile tape into the center on the inside. And this is just because you'll be able to see the inside once they're in place, and it just gives a little bit of extra detail. So now I can do the fun part of adding the half circles, and I'm going to start at the center at the front. I'm going to pop my first one in place, and then I'm going to pop one on either side of this, and then one on either side at the back as well. Now I didn't measure where these were going to go, I just did it by eye, which was a lot easier to do, and I just messed with it until I was happy with where they were placed from looking at it front on at the front. And yeah, I did 5 for each one. So once they were all glued in place, I could start to decorate these. So I'm using some bits of greenery from some plastic flowers that I got from my local market, and I'm going to start by using this longer one and just pop one piece all the way down the front. So I'm just going to make sure that there's a line of this from the top of the half circle to the bottom, and I'm going to do this for each one, and then I'm going to add some other bits of greenery as well just to bulk it out a little bit. And it took forever to do this bit, especially once I started adding some more greenery and some flowers as well. I spent a couple of days doing this, but I just took my time using some tweezers not to burn my fingers. once I was happy with the first layer of greenery, I'm now going to add some beaded garland, and this is just the stuff that you get at Christmas. I had some leftover from B&M's, and I'm just going to secure it at the top and then wrap it around loosely all the way down until I get to the bottom, and then secure it in place with a bit of glue. And I'm going to do this for each of these sections. Once all the beading's in place, I'm going to add a little bit more greenery in a lighter green just to give it a bit more depth because it's very dark at the moment. I'll be using bits of gypsy grass as well, and these white little flowers that I'm going to cut to make single ones, and I'm just going to dot them about. So I'm just going to start adding the greenery and the flowers until I'm happy with how it looks, and I'm going to do it on every single section. And yeah, it took quite a while to do just because I was gluing individual pieces on, but I'm glad and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm so happy with how this looks at this point, so yeah, it was definitely worth it in the end. So to decorate the polystyrene balls, because they're just plain black at the moment, I'm using some leftovers from some other projects. Now, these were made by using cake molds and flexible filler. I have used them in some previous videos, and I will be using some in future videos as well. And I do have a video showing how to make these, and I've just painted them gold and black. And I'm just going to cover the polystyrene balls with what I've got left, and just to add a little bit of detail. And then the last thing to do is to decorate the top section of the statue. So I've just cut 2 pieces of cardboard from an old cardboard box, just using poster paint in black, and I'm just going to cover both sides and let it dry. And I want to create a small flower display at the top behind the cherubs, just because I want the cherubs to stand out a little bit more, and it looks a little bit odd because there's so much stuff going on in the center of the statue and nothing happening at the top. So I'm just going to use bits of leftover foliage and flowers, and I'm going to start by gluing a larger leaf at the top of each piece of cardboard, and then 1 leaf on either side. So once I was happy with them, I can attach them to the back of the cherubs, and I'm just going to secure them in place with some hot glue. And then I'm going to add some more greenery and a few bits of white flowers, some of the white gypsy grass and some of the small flowers that I used on the cage around the center. Now, I didn't film the whole process of me doing the flowers for the top. It took me about 4 hours. So it would have been a lot of footage, and I'm not too sure how much people really like seeing me doing flower arrangements. I know a lot of people aren't really that interested in it, but I do normally explain what I'm doing a little bit so it gives you an idea. But I'm just taking bits of leftover greenery from other projects, and I'm just going to bulk it out, starting from behind the back of the cherub, so you don't see any of the glue or any of the pieces where it's been glued in place. And I'm just going to bulk it out until I'm happy with it. And then once all the greenery is in place, I'm going to add some white into it to tie it into the other part of the statue, and then we're done and I can take it into the bathroom and show you what they look like. And here they are finished. So originally they weren't going to go here. They were going to go at the ends of the bath, but they won't fit because of the cage that I built around the back. So unfortunately, I've had to put them here, but I do like them here. I would have preferred them at the end of the bath, but I'm really happy with how they turned out. I'm glad that I added the greenery behind the cherubs. Otherwise, it would have looked a little bit odd. But yeah, they are a little bit over the top, but I do love them, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. So I will be back on Monday. Till then, have a fantastic weekend. Take care, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.